I'm going to be demonstrating how to make the 17th century so-called Spanish braid of 7 loops that is the root, the basic braid in the 14-loop letter braid. I am not going to be demonstrating how to do the letter braid. That is a 2-person braid, which I do have a method for doing on one set of hands, but I'm not going to be demonstrating either of those here. This is how to do the 7-loop braid that is the base braid of the 14-loop letter braid. This braid is described in Joy Boutrip, the collaborative work by Joy Boutrip and Noemi Spicer on the 17th century letter braids. You can read more about it by Googling, well, you can read more about it on the link to my blog on the Spanish braid or the letter braid. Okay, I'm going to start. This braid is done with bicolor. I am doing this braid with bicolor loops. It does not need to be done with bicolor loops. It helps. It's helpful because you will be able to make sure that you are not turning the loops or that you are turning the loops by noticing whether the color changes. So I'm starting with all my light colored shanks on the upper side of my fingers and the dark shanks on the lower side. By the way, if you do not yet know what bicolor loops are, go to my blog, which there's a link. If you're on YouTube, there's a link to it if you click on more information for this video, and go to the bicolor loop magic post, and you will learn how to set up your loops for like this, the way I have it, with loops that are half one color, half another, and you'll learn not very much terminology, but it would be helpful to do that first before doing this braid. This braid is twice as complex as a square braid, even though it doesn't necessarily have any more loops, and that's because there's something that's more important, really, in determining how complex a loop braid is, and that's how interwoven the final structure is. And this is going to have 4 loop transfers per braiding cycle, rather than 2. It's twice as complex, twice as intricate as a square braid. It's a really fun braid, and this 7-loop braid can make some amazing patterns. I have a few pictures of pattern samplers that I've done with this braid on my blog. So you can learn how to do that in the series of 2 or more videos that I'm going to make. And you can also learn the basic braiding structure for if you move on to do letter braids using Joy Boutrip's book, monograph. This will show you how to do the basic braid, and her monograph will go further in explaining how to turn certain loops to make the letters. But let's start simple. First, I'm going to be braiding a divided braid. This is good for making a loop at the top of the braid. The upper, it'll be a divided double weave braid. The upper layer will be the light color, and the lower layer will be the dark color. This is how you braid when you do make the letter braid. When 2 people are doing this together, they braid in such a way that the 2 layers are separated. They only join when the letters, when loops are turned to form the letters. For my 7-loop Spanish sampler braids, I braided this way just when I wanted to make a loop. And this will show you the basic braiding moves, and later we'll move on to turning the loops to do a non-divided braid. Okay, so the way the moves go, I'm going to be starting on my the loops on my left hand. There will be 2 loop transfers. Again, I begin with all the light shanks on the upper side of the fingers and all the dark shanks on the lower. The first loop transfer is going to be done by the index finger of the right hand, going through, I could say the middle finger. I'm going to switch to using the proper names for these fingers. It's much shorter and easier to do. In loop braiding, the middle finger is the B finger. This is A, B, C, and D. Oh, I should mention that the way the loops begin is that there is a loop on the left hand on A, B, no loop on C, and a loop on D. On the right hand, there are loops on all 4 of the fingers. Okay, back to the first loop transfer. Right A finger is going to go through B and take left A without a turn. Notice how I'm taking it without a turn by going within the loop. The blue shank, the light shank, will stay uppermost, and I will place it on left C. That was the first loop transfer. Now I will shift my loops up. I will shift my 1 loop up. That's my loop configuration now. I'm ready for the second transfer. For the second loop transfer, the operator finger will be left B. Left B will go through C and D of that hand, and from behind, like that, and it will take right D, the right D loop, without a turn. It's taking it through, letting go. Now I have 4 loops on the left hand, and now only 3 on the right hand. My left 2 loop transfers are done. I now shift my right C finger down 1 position, and I'm ready to tighten. I now have no loop on my right C finger, and in fact my loops are in the mirror image configuration that they were when I started. My left transfers are done. I'm going to tighten a couple times straight out to the side. Now I'm ready to do in mirror image those same moves on the right loops, the right hand's loops. It's a little bit harder to fit this into the camera. My first operator finger will be my left index finger. It will go through right B. It will take the right A loop without a turn and put it onto right C. Now my right B loop will shift up 1 position. And now the right B finger, new operator finger, will go through the 2 loops next to it, C and D, and it will take left D with no turn. It's taking it straight across, and the shift is going to happen on the left hand's loops. That left C loop is going to shift down 1 position, and I tighten. 1 braiding cycle is now done. I've done 4 loop transfers, 2 on the left side, 2 on the right side, and I'm ready to start again. You can combine these movements in different ways, and I'm going to try and keep doing it this way, the way I set it out, but I tend to, there, first transfer done, shift, second transfer, using the middle finger, the B finger, taking the D of the other hand through, now shifting down on the right hand. I don't know if you saw that. Let's do it again. After I took that last loop, there was no loop on the D finger. That needs to be corrected. I'm going to shift my C loop down, tighten. I'm now ready to do those moves. On the other side, we go through B, take A with no turn. Shit, I might have done that in an order that okay, let's undo that. That's how I usually do it, but that's not how it's set out in the directions. So I'm going to go through B, take A without a turn and put it on C, and then shift up 1 movement, freeing the B finger, which can now go through its 2 adjacent loops, C and D, to take the opposite hand's D loop and bring it through. Opposite hand shifts down 1 position. Its C loop shifts down. Tighten. We are now in cycle start position again. The left hand has loops on 3 fingers. The C finger or ring finger is bare of loops. It's ready to go. Starting a new cycle. An odd thing about this braid is that I'm using the black strands are much thicker than the blue. I'm not quite sure how this is going to. I just tried to find the thickest braiding yarn that I had, and they don't quite match, so we'll see how that turns out. My two layers are forming separately. Let's see if you can see at the fell. There's a light blue braid, turquoise braid forming on top, a black braid forming on the bottom. This is how the letter braid is made. It's in two separate layers. For the letter braid, you never turn the loops as you're braiding. You turn them on your fingers before making, according to the charts for each letter. But during the braiding moves, all happen like this without turning any of the loops. I'm going to braid this way a little further down to make a loop, and then I will join my upper and lower layers by starting to turn the loops. Let's do a few more cycles with this, though. How much time do I have? I should probably stop soon. This will run out of time, so I'm going through B to take A and put it on C, shift up. Now I'm getting ready to put the middle finger through those two loops, take the opposite hand's D loop and bring it through, opposite hand's D finger gets the C loop, that's the shift down, tighten. Other side, through B, take A, place it on C, shift B up, B finger through C and D, takes D of the other hand with no turn, D of the other hand gets the C loop, C loop shifts down to D, tighten. Another cycle done, beginning again. And I'm checking also to make sure that none of my loops have turned. The light loops are all still on the upper side of the fingers, and the dark loops are all still on the lower side.